benefit Democrats to stand. Joining us now with their reaction to everything we've been talking about this hour, this evening's political panel. We've got a good one. Jim Kessler, Democratic strategist, Executive Vice President for Policy at Third Way, joined by Republican strategist Sarah Chamberlain, the President, CEO of the Republican Main Street Partnership. It's great to see you both. Redistricting won't matter if the government's not open, and I guess I need to start there because we're in the throes of another raging debate over the funding for ICE and Homeland Security, having just reopened the government following this debate. A letter went out today, Sarah, from Democrats, Hakeem Jeffries and your former boss, Chuck Schumer, to the Republican leadership with 10 demands. Yeah. One of the big ones is no masks. Another one is identification. They go on to include training and many of the other provisions that we've been talking about. Katie Britt calls it a Christmas list of ridiculous proportions. Are we shutting down again the department next week?
No, I think the last minute will come to some type of compromise. I mean, as you saw in the House, 7 Democrats did join the Republicans to fund it. So I think the Democrats will have to come over and fund. I think the Republicans are going to negotiate on some of it. We already have started. Obviously, there'll be body cams. They're going to be de-escalation training now. And President Trump has pulled out about 700 ICE agents from Minnesota. So, like, we're starting to get there. And he admitted on Tuesday night in the ABC interview that maybe it was a
softer touch.
A softer touch. Yeah. So we're getting there. But, like, the Democrats have to meet us halfway, or the government will shut down. But I do think we're good. Well, I think last minute.
Really? Okay.
I do. Last minute, I think.
I was going to save your crystal ball to the end. So there's optimism.
There is
optimism. This is good. We've talked to a number of Republicans the last couple of days who've made clear, Mr. Kessler, that these are all non-starters. You know several of them. And why don't we start with Ted Cruz, who joined us just last evening with his take on these potential reforms. Listen.
The reason that ICE agents are having to wear masks is because the left is deliberately doxing them. They are targeting them. If they find out their identities, they are sending violent protesters to their homes. They are threatening their families.
We've got them using body cams for their operations right now. I think that's a bipartisan idea.
These ICE agents are being targeted by some of the anti-ICE instigators, and I think in some instances their identity should be protected. But this is just, to me, just a ridiculous request.
A ridiculous request that Mr. Cornyn also called an insult to these agents' professionalism. This sounds like we're an ocean apart here. What happens next week?
Well, I do think we're going to have a shutdown.
You do?
I think it's going to be a mini shutdown because we've funded most of the rest of the government. I don't know how long it'll last. I think Senator Katie Britt will be part of those negotiations from Alabama. She's a good-faced negotiator and a conduit in between Democrats and Republicans. I don't believe the Democratic demands are outrageous demands. They're very, very normal demands. Like, you'd look at this list and you're like, this isn't happening already. And I also think, look, there's a Kristi Noem problem, okay, that the president needs to cast her aside. She is not capable of doing this job. She is a media-addicted political hack. Wow. They should have a professional at the top. I think there needs to be kind of something major beyond what the president has already done with Tom Homan in Minnesota and withdrawing, some of the troops there. But there needs to be something more.
Well, of course, if this happens, we're reminded by Republicans frequently that ICE has lots of money from the big, beautiful bill, and what will actually be shut down here is the TSA
and FEMA.
So how long does that go on for before this? We remember what happened when the airports were shut down.
Absolutely. And the Democrats are not going to want to go through that again.
Is that what keeps this from being a long shutdown?
That's my opinion. And that's why I think if we shut down, and I still don't think we will at the last minute, but if we do, be short term. I mean, you go to the airport, nobody wants to wait in line for hours. And then in FEMA, with all the snow and the ice, and I mean, FEMA needs to be active as well. So I think the Democrats will realize that in an election year especially, you do not want to not fund FEMA and TSA.
How long can Chuck Schumer play that game for if we're in a world where TSA agents aren't getting paid? This is very recent memory for people.
He can play it for a long time.
Yeah?
Yeah, he can play it for a long... Look, he took criticism for the deal that we got, a week ago that... opened the government. And look, it was a good deal. It was a Democratic win, no doubt about it. He got half of his caucus, but, he took some heat on that too. when there is a deal, and I agree with you, there will be a deal at some point, he will take heat for that then. He will not take heat if the government is shut down.
Boy, that's really something. What does Mike Johnson need to do in the next couple of days here to try to prevent that from happening?
I think he just sits back and lets the Senate try to negotiate through it.
So this is Schumer and Trump. This is not all the leaders on Capitol Hill.
Right. I think it's Schumer and Trump trying to figure it out. But if I'm, as a Republican, the longer the lines are in TSA, the better we're going to do in November.
I mean, Sarah starts making more TV ads.
Exactly. Because you cannot do this to people. And FEMA, I mean, look where we have had snow in the past month. I mean, we're still living with it here. You can't not have FEMA funded and ready to go. You cannot have them shut down. That, too, will be a win for the Republicans.
Well, I don't think TSA lines in February are going to affect votes in November.
No?
I know. You will if there's enough commercials about it.
Well, we'll see.
How about Bitcoin in February? Does that impact the midterms next November?
Well, Bitcoin's had a very, very rough...
I should say so, but it's directly associated with this administration.
Yeah, and look, I think part of it that's associated with this administration is the corruption here. So, one of the things that you could see Democrats talking about is the massive corruption and double dealing. It's not being heard right now because cost of living and ICE are really the top issues, but I do think that's an undercard issue here.
Well, Gregory Meeks certainly went there. Does an ethics debate derail the Clarity Act?
No, I don't think so.
Really?
I don't think so.
That could pass
polling. We're doing a lot of polling now. Obviously, it's that time of the election cycle. People, they don't own Bitcoin. They don't care about Bitcoin. Most of them don't even understand Bitcoin.
On an election issue.
But what they do care about is feeding their families and making sure the groceries are cheaper.
Well, we could argue that Bitcoin is more affordable today. Sarah Chamberlain and Jim Kessler, great to have you back. Great conversation. Thank you. And check out the